Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking something you likely have sitting in the crisper drawer of your fridge right this very second, and we are going to completely flip the way you look at it. We're talking about the green chili. It's not just some common culinary afterthought or a simple garnish. As we're about to see, the green chili is actually a mind-blowing botanical marvel and a massive macroeconomic powerhouse. I mean, this little green pod quietly influences everything from global trade networks all the way to advanced pharmaceutical pain relief. Okay, let's dive into this. We all know chilies pack a punch, right? But where does that heat actually come from? To truly understand this plant, we have to go on a bit of a journey. We're going to zoom all the way in to the microscopic cellular level of the pod. See how human history shaped its spread across the globe. And then we'll zoom all the way out to look at the staggering international trade networks that bring it right to your plate. Section 1. The Anatomy of Heat, Botanical Architecture. So formally speaking, we're looking at Capsicum annuum L. This is a highly branched, semi-woody shrub that belongs to the Solanaceae family, which you probably know better as the nightshade family. Now, historically, this plant originated in Mesoamerica, but its vegetative structure is really what makes it so incredibly robust. It typically grows anywhere from 0.5 meter to 1.5 meters tall. It's covered in these beautiful, deep emerald green leaves, and it produces pendant flowers, these little blossoms with a white to dull cream corolla enclosing 5 to 6 purplish anthers. And here's the genius part. These flowers are self-pollinating, which is a huge reason why the plant was able to spread like wildfire. Now, this brings us to one of the absolute biggest misconceptions out there in the culinary world. If you ask almost anyone where the spicy heat of a chili comes from, they're going to tell you it's in the seeds. That is a total myth. The green chili pod is technically an elongated hollow berry, and inside that empty central cavity is a pale, spongy tissue called the locular placenta. The highest concentration of the fiery chemical compounds, the capsaicinoids, is synthesized in glands layered right along that spongy placenta, not inside those small, pale yellow seeds. The seeds just happen to be anchored to the placenta, so they get covered in the spicy oil, but they don't actually produce the heat themselves. Now, even though the plant is grown everywhere, it's actually pretty high maintenance when it comes to its environment. It demands a frost-free, warm growing season. The absolute sweet spot for growth is right in that Goldilocks zone between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius. If it gets too hot, like over 35 degrees, or drops below 15, the plant goes into shock and drops its flowers, which means zero fruit. It also needs light, well-drained sandy loam with a very specific pH. But the real Achilles heel here is water. It is highly sensitive to standing water. A prolonged puddle literally drowns the roots, bringing on immediate root rot and devastating wilting diseases. Moving right along to Section 2, Naming the Fire, Etymology and Linguistics. The linguistic history here is just wild, and it perfectly highlights the historical confusion baked right into the names. The term chili traces its lineage all the way back to the indigenous Nahuatl language of the Aztecs, where they called it chili. But when the Spanish conquistadors first tasted it, they mistakenly associated that pungent heat with black pepper, which is pimienta. So they created this linguistic overlap that we still use today. You can see it in the Spanish pimiento verde and the French piment vert. As it spread, it became deeply woven into other cultures too. We've got Hari Mirch in Hindi and Urdu, King Jiao in Mandarin. But honestly, my absolute favorite on this entire list is the Thai translation for those tiny bird's eye variants, plik hinu. That hilariously translates directly to mouse-dropping chili. You really can't make that up. All right, Section 3, Chemistry, Pain, and Healing. Let's get into the pharmaceutical science. The chemical makeup of a green chili is honestly astounding. First, you've got capsaicin and dihydrocapsaicin, which are the lipophilic alkaloids driving that intense perceived pungency and, surprisingly, pain relief. But look at the micronutrients for a second. Fresh, unheated green chilies pack significantly higher concentrations of vitamin C than mature citrus fruits. That's right, more than an orange. Now, quick pro tip. That vitamin C is unstable and degrades rapidly when cooked, so you only get that massive immune boost if you eat them raw. They're also loaded with beta-carotene and lutein, which are these fat-soluble pigments that give the pod its green tone and act as critical precursors to vitamin A, giving you some robust retinal protection for your eyes. But let's talk about the pain, or more accurately, how the pain paradoxically heals you. It's an incredible process. Step 1. The capsaicin molecules selectively target and bind to your TRPV1 receptors. Step 2. This excites the peripheral nociceptive nerve fibers. By constantly stimulating these nerves, we get to Step 3, the total depletion of substance P, which is the neurotransmitter responsible for carrying pain signals in the first place. So without substance P, step 4 happens automatically. Pain signals to the brain are blocked. This localized pain desensitization is exactly why capsaicin is the core ingredient in topical medical creams used to treat diabetic neuropathy, rheumatoid arthritis, and chronic muscle pain. Time to bust another massive, widespread myth. You have almost certainly heard that eating too much spicy food causes stomach ulcers, right? Well, actually, scratch that. It's completely false. Research shows that mild intake of green chilies actually stimulates the sensory neurons in your stomach lining. This triggers your stomach to release more protective alkaline mucus, and that alkali secretion actively shields your gastric wall against your body's own destructive hydrochloric acid. So it doesn't cause ulcers. It can actually help protect against them. And the body hacks just keep coming. Clinical evidence backs up the fact that ingesting active capsaicinoids kicks your sympathetic nervous system into gear. This induces catecholamine secretion, which literally increases your body's oxygen consumption and elevates your core metabolic energy expenditure. This whole process is called thermogenesis. Put simply, it turns up your internal thermostat, speeds up your metabolism, promotes lipid oxidation, and acts as a legitimate, clinically recognized aid in weight management therapies.
Okay, Section 4, the global chili economy. Let's look at the global market reach.
40 million tons. To put that into perspective, that is the staggering amount of fresh and green chilies traded globally every single year. It is a monumental agricultural undertaking that blends everyday fresh culinary retail, massive industrial pickling operations, and high-tech chemical capsaicin extraction pipelines. So the real question is, who is actually growing all of this? Well, China is the undisputed heavyweight champion of green pepper and chili production. They account for over 45% of the total global yield. To pull this off, they utilize vast, intensive greenhouse arrays in provinces like Shandong. This guarantees an unbroken, year-round supply line not just to feed their own immense domestic demand, but for heavy East Asian industrial exporting. Right behind China, we have two other major agricultural leaders shaping the globe. India is famous for its dry red chilies, for sure, but they are also a massive domestic producer and consumer of fresh green varieties, like the Guntur and Pusa Javala cultivars. It's an absolute staple in their daily regional culinary arts, supporting vast micro-farming economies. And then, of course, we have Mexico. This is the historical home of the plant, and today they absolutely dominate the premium fresh North American market. Specialized varieties like the jalapeno, the serrano, and the poblano represent incredibly high-value cash crops that fuel a multi-billion-dollar trade pipeline directly into the United States. Now, moving all these delicate pods around the world is no joke. It requires specialized, massive logistics. The U.S. is the world's largest net importer of fresh green chilies, heavily depending on the North American cold chain. We're talking highly efficient, temperature-controlled routes running straight out of Mexican production belts just to preserve the moisture and color of the crop. Meanwhile, the European import network relies on off-season agricultural routing from Morocco, Turkey, and Spain into northern hubs like Germany and the UK. But beyond just fresh eating, you have the oleoresin extraction pipelines. High-pungency green chilies are industrially processed to yield pure chili oleoresins. These concentrated chemical extracts are absolutely critical for manufacturing the pharmaceutical analgesics we discussed earlier, industrial food flavorings, and even global security defensive sprays.
We have really covered some ground today. We tracked this plant from the spongy locular placenta inside a hollow berry through ancient Aztec linguistics into the medical marvels of thermogenesis and nerve blocking, all the way out to a 40 million ton global cold chain economy. So, I'll leave you with this question to ponder. Will you ever look at your next spicy meal or even your next pain relief cream the same way again? The sheer complexity hidden inside that simple green pod in your fridge is honestly nothing short of astounding. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep staying curious.